Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Vedic Astrology Podcast. Today, I am recording our session for Solar Capricorn, the Sun transiting through the Rashi of Capricorn. Every Rashi this year, we have been following the Sun's transit as a way to see if we can understand the field of the Rashi a little bit better by how it might affect the Sun as it goes through. And today we're looking at Capricorn, and this is going to be an interesting end to our series. We have Capricorn and Aquarius to do. Both of these Rashis are owned by Saturn, and Saturn and the Sun are mutual enemies in Vedic astrology, which is actually not that common. So there really are two planets approach getting their agenda done in completely different ways. So I think it's going to be quite an interesting challenge in a way, tapping into the Sun through these transits, because maybe there's quite a bit of discomfort for the Sun here through these signs. So let's check in, as we always do, by trying to describe something about the sign so that that's what we're really trying to connect with, get a more visceral and in our body experiential experience of these fields, so that although we're looking at the Sun going through Capricorn, once we learn how these things feel, or how these fields, how we embody them, how we experience them in the body, then we can understand a Mars transit through Capricorn or a Venus transit through Capricorn. So if we think about the Sun traveling through Capricorn, maybe for Vedic astrologers, one of the things that comes up straight away is that the Sun is starved by Kshudhita Avastha when it's in Capricorn, because starvation is caused by being in the sign of an enemy, which is the case here. And really, we can think about this as being the Sun is our inspiration, our true guiding inner light. It's our true self, our true calling, our purpose, our soul. So it's what we truly are, the Sun. But now it's transiting through an environment, this field of Capricorn that's owned by Saturn, and Saturn is all about what we are not. So this is how they have these completely different approaches. The Sun, what we truly are, Saturn helping us to understand all the things that we are not. And so right away you can see that kind of conflicting realities, isn't it? It's a bit like that improv game that you might have had a chance to play, two entities with completely different motivations. So when we think about our living inspiration of the Sun, now it's traveling through a field, a Rashi, an environment that is not supportive of its true self. And that's what the starvation is. It's hard to be oneself in a Sun way in the sign of Capricorn. And that's what I think is going to make it a bit challenging for this and the Aquarius transit. If we want to learn what Capricorn is, we might end up feeling that we get in touch more with that discomfort or frustration or the blockage or the obstacle of being in Capricorn rather than Capricorn itself. But this is the project, so let's see what we experience. So then the Sun is trying to take this vision, this impulse, and now it's in the struggle of surviving in Capricorn. And Capricorn really is about survival. Saturn signs are about survival. And the Sun is very noble and vision-driven and motivated. And here we come to a very almost brutal kind of reality where we might just have to survive. And you would think that being a leader maybe is good for a survival situation. So the Sun has natural leadership qualities, but in some ways the sign of Capricorn brings you to your knees, and it can be associated with the thighs and with the knees, the field of Capricorn, that you really have to just surrender to survival. And I guess that means surrender your ego. So that is the good part of it. And maybe that's what Capricorn gives us, is a chance to work out what part of our inspiration is egoic and what is truly the guiding light. So let's see what we can do to work with that. The Sun in Capricorn gives us the opportunity to find out what is ego and what is our true light. because true light is undefeatable, and everything else, the ego, is perishable. And that's what Saturn is going to knock out of the sun, or our inspiration, motivation. It's really going to be tested and stretched here, and we'll have to let go of anything that's false. So let's look at some of these qualities of Capricorn. The archetype that's associated, or the archetypal animal, is crocodile, which is an animal that's almost unchanged since the dinosaurs, right? It's an animal that's so adapted to nature. It completely surrendered its evolution to nature, to the fact that now it is completely aligned and adapted with its environment. So it doesn't need to change anymore. It can survive, which is what Capricorn is all about. And while the crocodile is a survivor, it's not a survivor in a noble way. It's really sacrificed anything in terms of softness, in terms of beauty, in attractiveness. The crocodile is just a beast of survival. Although it's interesting, isn't it, that crocodile skin can be seen as a very luxurious item. So I think that this does speak about, one hears that Capricorn is the sign of greatness, and that if we can survive Capricorn, we will come through to the greatness. There are things that are prized about this adaptation of the crocodile, that as you look at one, as you encounter a crocodile, they have certainly sacrificed any of those attractive or show-offy features. It's all function and all in alignment with what is natural. They are reptiles, so they're cold-blooded, and I think that's just interesting to note because Saturn is so cold. And they have a long life, can be 75 years or more in a tough environment. This is not a long life in a very easy place in the world. So they have that Saturn quality of surviving and persisting. And they are able to handle the land and the water. That's how evolved they are for their environment. They can operate in both. Even though they're not like fish or whatever that lives in the water, they can spend a long time in the water and meet their needs there. So I think that this also means that ideally Capricorn and Saturn are teaching us to be able to withstand whatever changes that are happening in the environment, because we have sacrificed anything ephemeral. We're just pure function. And whether that's land or water, heat or rain, we can survive. We're going to be okay. Capricorn is a feminine sign, but also a cardinal sign. So it's got this really unusual mixture of both being receptive, but also setting the direction of this part of the ecliptic. So we can think about it as being feminine in the way that it's receptive to the hard work that is required. One can think about all of the zodiac's journey that we've been on through this year, talking about the different rashis and all of the moments of inspiration and the moments of process improvement, reflecting on what we've learned. This is feminine receptive in that this is just implementing the hard work. We're not questioning it anymore. We're not arguing about it or pushing back against it, hopefully. It is just surrendered to the task. This is in the hero's journey. This is the great battle. So you don't want to be in the great battle and questioning whether this is a good idea or not. We're just surrendered to doing it. And if we think that it comes after Sagittarius, where we've had that highest vision, so that's why Sagittarius transit of the sun was so important to tap into that fire energy, because right now here in Capricorn, we find ourselves in this survival earth sign that is very cold and unforgiving. It's just brutal. Also, it's good to remember that Mars is exalted here in Capricorn, and Mars has that rebellious nature, but that can be a little bit counterproductive in some ways. And right here in Capricorn, Mars is not rebelling. It's working with the limited resources it has, making decisive action to engineer a solution. So we can learn a lot from Capricorn's feminine sign by the way that Mars is exalted here. And in another way, it is feminine because the practice of survival is ultimately an internal practice in Capricorn. It having that vision from Sagittarius, and now inside of myself, through all of the pressure and trials and difficulty of Capricorn, am I still committed to that vision? So it's almost a very internal devotional practice. Can I maintain that connection to Sagittarius internally as I face the reality of the great battle, no matter what is thrown at me? And there's just no point in being a diva about it. There's no one here to rescue a diva. So whoever is here in Capricorn is going to survive on their own. And that's an internal experience. So that's also why we can connect to it as a feminine experience. It is a cardinal sign, so we're definitely going to be doing the hard work, but not for glory. We're just doing it because it's what we signed up to. And this is where, I always say, that's where the rubber hits the road. It is a tamasic merchant sign. So we're solving problems. That's the tamasic part of it, which, remember, Saturn is looking down into this earth sign. We're solving these problems with persistence, and we're toughening up by doing that. Think of how tough that crocodile skin really is. And that becomes valuable over time as we persist through something very difficult, and we have that internal connection, that place inside of ourselves where there's meaning from Sagittarius and our whole ecliptic journey so far, that is powering us through this difficult experience. That ends up becoming a tradable or a useful thing. That's the merchant side of it. And it's Saturn, so it's going to take its time. It's going to be slow, and it's possibly going to be lame. That Saturn is wounded. Saturn is our flaws. So here we are, the sun, theoretically the king, going through this feminine earth cardinal tamasic sign. And for me, it's a little bit like the battlefield. We talked about the great battle. What happens in Fight Club stays in Fight Club, in a way that we might do ignoble things or unnoble things to survive. And that's that survivor guilt that one can have through getting through Capricorn. So for the sun, it's challenging because we really may end up sacrificing things. And that's, for me, there's a couple of things that the sun and Saturn have in common. And one of them, I think they both ask for sacrifices. And the sun is asking us to sacrifice for the greater good, for the auspicious vision, for righteousness. We're going to sacrifice in order to bring everyone along into this improved and righteous experience of living. For Saturn, we have to sacrifice our ego and all of our ideals. Any of our theoretical approach to life is just going to be useless in the reality of this earth sign. So they both require us to sacrifice things. But for the sun, the challenges here can be sacrificing our ideals and our noble behavior, or holding on to it and just battling really hard through the experience of Capricorn. So going to set up that environment for us. And in some ways, they both share truth as well, that the sun is about the noble truth. It's such a sattvic planet. But for me, Saturn is also that. It's the truth of reality. What is going to really fly, what is really going to work, that you can't fake your way through Saturn signs and through Capricorn. It's just the truth of reality. So this is the environment of Capricorn. And how is that going to be different for each of our ascendants? So what we've been doing each Rashi is having a look at what house is ruled by the sun in your birth chart, and then thinking about how are the aims of that house going to be stimulated by the sun being, in this case, the sign of Capricorn. And that's what we're going to do today. Remember that we can't speak about the specifics of your chart, and there are many things that might make what I'm about to say not relevant at all or very tangential to the experience that you're having. Depends what planets you have in Capricorn, depends what's happening for Saturn in your chart, depends what is transiting through with the sun as we go through Capricorn. And for those who've listened throughout the year, We no longer do the transits as part of this podcast. So come on over to Patreon if you would like to. Every 2 weeks, we get together and have a look at the immediate transits. But keep that in mind when you listen to this, that it's a practice that we're looking at how to experience more the field of Capricorn, but it might not say everything about what's going on for you during this period of time. But keeping that in mind, if we think about Aries Ascendant and the Sun is the 5th Lord for an Aries Ascendant. And in this transit, it'll be the 5th Lord transiting through the 10th house. And this is a beautiful combination. Astrologers love this, don't we? Because we have a trinal Lord of grace, the 5th house, all about improvements and creating our legacy. And it's going to be transiting through the 10th house of the birth chart, which is the most famous part of the birth chart. It's at the top of the sky. It's where our career and what we're known for. So it sounds great. However, we have to remember that this is going to be the Sun going through Capricorn, which is where it experiences a starvation and quite a disconnect between its approach to life. So let's think about, it might help us get real about the reality of some of our investments. Maybe it's a time to have a talk to ourselves about that, or even just getting real with ourselves about our legacy and any tough decisions that we have to make about our work in relation to our legacy that we want to create and leave. There could be some harshness in dealing with government, as the government is associated with the 10th house and our 5th Lord is transiting through here. And there might be some tension between our children, which is also represented by the 5th house, and our work here in the 10th house. So maybe this Christmas time and holiday time, there's that tension between what our work needs us to do and what is lovely for our family at this time of year. So these are some ideas of how we might experience the Sun as the 5th Lord transiting through our 10th house. For Taurus Ascendant, the Sun is the 4th Lord because Leo is the 4th sign when we count from Taurus. And it is also in a lovely combination. So the 4th Lord is an angular Lord, all about our inner contentment and our sanctuary. It is a moksha house. So the Sun is associated with moksha for Taurus Ascendants and with our home. And it's going to be transiting through the 9th house of a Taurus Ascendant chart. So again, a lovely trinal and angular combination, which sounds great from a distance, but in reality, we're going to have the Sun experiencing quite a difficult field here. Even though these are good numbers, it's a difficult field. So one inner contentment, that's what the Sun's agenda is all about, is going to be linked to the 9th house of purpose and meaning and of our lineage, our parents or culture and family. It's an angle and trine combination, but it's going through this sign of harsh reality and doing what we know is meaningful, perhaps, and has its highest purpose because it will bring peace, even though it's going to be difficult. That the work of doing that is going to be difficult because it's in Capricorn. But that might be where we can get in touch with what the Sun is experiencing, is doing those meaningful and purposeful things, even though they're difficult, because we know that the inner peace that's there is worth it. And I just wrote a note to myself in my notes about the Russia-Ukraine situation, that we know what the right thing to do in terms of ideals is holding on to this ideal that you can't invade somebody else's country. And that has a lot of meaning. And then we're also in this period as this kind of a transition from Pluto moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius and change of president in the US and lots of different things changing. Will there become some practical compromise or just pragmatism that, yeah, it is wrong, but we cannot give any more lives to that? And so Capricorn's the kind of place that asks you that question. And I'm not trying to say what the right answer is to that question at all, but Capricorn is that merchant. It is a pragmatic, harsh, real, brutal kind of place. And that's what I mean about what happens on the battlefield stays on the battlefield, that sometimes we need to make decisions and take actions that are not noble when seen from another sign in the zodiac. So that was my note to self for understanding that 4 and 9. It provoked that in my mind. Okay, for Gemini Ascendant, the Sun rules the third of our hobbies and interests and our friends and younger siblings. And it is going to be transiting through the 8th house. So this is a more difficult number combination because the 8th is sudden changes and unexpected things. It is a moksha sign, so it is sudden changes for our enlightenment. And the 3rd is a lot of courage and exploration and rubbing up against things to see who we are and where we fit in things. So this is maybe a more unbalanced kind of combination, the 3rd Lord transiting through the 8th house. But maybe it gives us a chance to dive deep into our hobbies. That might be a way to get in touch with the Sun here. It has interests and hobbies. And the 8th is going to give us a chance to really delve into the mystery of our hobbies, but through the lens of reality, because we're here in the Earth sign of Capricorn. You could check in with what's happening with your younger siblings, your peers, your friends at this time, because maybe they're the ones in your chart who are experiencing a dose of reality or some kind of sudden change they weren't expecting. There's a little bit of a link here between the 3rd and the 8th with siblings and inheritance. So I don't know if that's something going on in your world. And the 8th can be about these unexpected changes. So is there something that you've been soldiering through that might break at this time? One of those straw that breaks the camel back type of things, that something that you've been trying to carry that just might be too much. Be careful with your neck, arms, shoulders, hands, all of those things related to the 3rd Lord. So take care, Geminis, with the Sun going through Capricorn. For Cancer Ascendant, it is the 2nd Lord. The Sun is the 2nd Lord traveling through the 7th house. And this makes us think about income and partner, because the 2nd house is all about our roles and responsibilities and how we take responsibility for ourselves, how we value ourselves and earn the money that we need to value ourselves. It's about also what we take in through our mouth and also what we speak about. So is there, because it's being linked here with the 7th, with partners, is there a hard-won contract negotiation or something that's happening in your life that's going to come into reality during this time that maybe just needs a bit of pragmatism to make it happen? Or is this a time when maybe it's about speaking your inspiration to your business partners or to your intimate partners, to the others in your life? Was maybe another way that the Sun's transit through Capricorn can be experienced. That's what we're trying to do with this series. Okay, if you are a Leo Ascendant, the Sun is your 1st Lord and it's transiting through the 6th house, which again shows us why it's difficult for the Sun to feel comfortable in Capricorn, because it is the 6th house of obstacles and debt and enemies. So the Sun, our inspiration, our 1st Lord, is going to be traveling through the 6th house. And maybe a way to get in touch with that is through our routine. Is there something that, like maybe our New Year's resolution, it's a nice time to just face the reality of the hard work of what's coming ahead for the coming year and have that good kind of inspired, I'm going to have a good daily routine. I'm going to have good nutrition. I'm going to look after my health. Maybe it's also about service. Maybe this is a lovely time at the holiday season to connect with the common person. Saturn represents the everyman, the every person. So maybe some serving would be lovely, or connecting with wild animals, because Capricorn's got that wild, untamed nature thing. And any feeling that we have about wanting things to come out easy, that might be the Sun. So if we're feeling jealous in any way, maybe that's a way for us to connect with the Sun. That's not pleasant, but that might be what the Sun feels like in Capricorn. And any interactions that we have with enemies might also be a way to connect with the Sun going through Capricorn. Okay, for Virgo Ascendant, we have the 12th Lord, the Sun, in the 5th house. And the 12th Lord, the Sun for Virgo Ascendant, is a very spiritual, contemplative planet. And it's going through the 5th house of mantra. I probably say this to every ascendant. I love mantras, but this might be a nice time to focus on a Sun mantra, perhaps. Although we have to ask ourselves, do we want to get in touch with the Sun going through Capricorn at this time? That's your own personal decision. We might be contemplating our self-improvement, whatever vision there was of the moksha, because we just had the Sun transiting through Sagittarius, which was the 4th house for Virgo. Whatever vision we had of that kind of moksha when we went through Sagittarius, now is the time to surrender to implementing that. And maybe we can also think about the 5th as being a field of creativity for Virgo. So how can our creativity lead to liberation? Maybe there's some devotional creative act or work that you would like to produce. Now for Libra Ascendant, the Sun is the 11th Lord. I'm sure every time I do this podcast, I give Libra Ascendant a hard time because the Sun ruling the 11th is a tricky planet. And now it's going through the 4th. And the 11th is a bit tricky because it's always growing. It's our aspirations and validation and belongingness, a need to be recognized, that is always growing. It's an upachaya house. So the Sun connected with that can be unsatisfying. And now it's going to go through the 4th house. And if you guys were listening to the Last Minute Gift Ideas podcast, we were talking about how linking the 4th with 11th can mean our happiness is also hard to satisfy. So this can be a little bit of a challenging combination. A moksha house of Capricorn for Libra Ascendant, but with the Sun feeling uncomfortable and wanting recognition, wanting the connection to belonging. So one could see this as aspiring to contentment, and any recognition that we do receive during Capricorn might feel, if we're lucky, deeply satisfying. And I guess we could think about it as, what are their aspirations for our home at this time of year? But if our inner contentment is feeling like a battle, if we're Libra Ascendant and our inner peace is feeling like a battle this transit, that might be how the Sun feels in this place. So even though that is uncomfortable, it is the exercise that we're undertaking. So it is giving us valuable data. So that might be our approach for Libra this transit. For Scorpio Ascendant, it is the 10th Lord. The Sun is the 10th Lord going through the 3rd house. And this links our career with our interests, our career with adventure and with hobbies and with younger siblings. So maybe using your skills in your work, it would be a way to connect with the Sun, because our Lord of career is in this place of using skills. Maybe some short trips for work, or even writing about your work, I'm wondering, as the 3rd house, which we're transiting through, might give us a chance to communicate and record about work. Maybe it being Capricorn and it's the 3rd house is normally an adventurous place. But Saturn is associated with fear. Its approach to life is fearful because it realizes the enormous cost of loss, and it has to endure everything. There's no escape for Saturn. It's just truth, reality, truth all the time. So it can be fear-based. And here we have our 10th Lord of work wanting to take risks. That's what the 3rd house is being about. But with Capricorn field hosting that, so maybe there'll be some fear around taking risks or some frustration around that. So even though that's not a pleasant feeling, that might be a way to understand the Sun's transit through Capricorn. For Sagittarius Ascendant, the Sun is our 9th Lord, and it's going to be in the 2nd house. So the 9th Lord is a very graceful planet in the chart because it rules our good fortune and it rules our connection to meaning and purpose. And it is going to be transiting through the 2nd house of speech and of how we value ourselves, how we take responsibility for our life. So do you want to speak about whatever it was that inspired you in Sagittarius in the previous transit? Maybe that's something that can connect us to the sun in Capricorn. Maybe you're going to speak honestly and plainly to that every person. That is what the sun, the ninth lord, but traveling through the second, is going to allow. And what are we going to battle over in Capricorn in terms of our morals and values? Because those would be associated with the ninth. What we think is really meaningful and purposeful for a Sagittarius planet, that's the sun. And here it is in this space of reality and pragmatism. So what is it that we value at our core, which is the second house, that is going to be tested here, and how are we going to meet that test? Might be the experience of Sagittarius if we're connecting to the sun in Capricorn. Next, we come to Capricorn itself. The sun is the eighth lord for a Capricorn Ascendant, and it is going to be transiting through the first house. So we have the eighth, which is a moksha lord. The sun is ruling a moksha house for Capricorn Ascendant. And that's that house of deeply examining and going fearlessly into the deepest truth in order to become enlightened. That's what the sun is trying to do. And now it's doing that in the first house of the self. So maybe a deep examination of the self, or an increased interest in psychology during this transit. Maybe even some intuition, but a kind of harsh intuition. Maybe inheriting something. If we look on the positive side, maybe there's some kind of inheritance coming here. Or it could be sudden changes to the body, because we have the eighth lord going through the house that's associated with the body. And the eighth can be associated with crisis. Maybe we're going to feel attacked here in Capricorn, or just feeling that pain in the body that is uncomfortable as the eighth lord goes through the first house for Capricorn Ascendant. For Aquarius Ascendant, the sun is our seventh lord, ruling our transactions and our exchanges, our business and our relationships with others. And it's in the 12th. And the 12th is associated with the internet and far off places. So maybe this is in the earth sign, making the reality of some internet business or far off trading, importing, exporting, distance business thing. Could be social media as well. Maybe you're going to use this time to focus on your profile on social media. And it might feel like you're battling a little bit, fighting a little bit to take that to the next level, which is the 12th. Or maybe it's time to let go of a current cycle of our business, as this is the 12th. And before the sun enters into Aquarius next transit, and we get to begin a cycle with the sun there in Aquarius, is it time to let go of something in your business, or to battle to take it to the next level, getting ready for when the sun moves? And in Pisces, for Pisces Ascendant, the sun is the sixth lord, and the sixth lord is all about our health and daily practices and our routines, the things that we do every day that keep our body and life well. And it is going to be transiting through the 11th, which is all about the larger social networks and about connecting and belonging, and about passive income as well. So how can our health and daily routines connect us to larger groups? Maybe do we want to join this year? Is one of our New Year's resolutions going to be that we want to join I don't know, whether it's a gym or a club or something that we can belong to that helps our daily routines? And what aspirations are you willing to fight for in relation to your debt, in relation to your obstacles, in relation to your health? Perhaps this is how one can tap into the sun during this transit through Capricorn. Okay, there we are. We have talked about how the sun might feel for each different ascendant. And you'll notice that in many of them, and probably all of them, there's a discomfort there. So this is in some ways a challenging transit for the sun, and we might not want to tap into the energy of Capricorn through the sun. We could wait till Mars comes through or another planet that performs a little bit better there. But if you are going to continue our practice following the sun's transit, then I am sending you lots of love and best wishes for this beautiful holiday season that we're all experiencing as the sun enters Capricorn. Is the solstice. It's the time when the sun's rays are hitting in the lowest declination of the planet. So we're getting those suns at the rays horizontal at the Tropic of Capricorn. This is as low as the sun is going to go. And very soon it will be moving upwards back towards the equator and back towards the equinox. So this is a very precious time, often commemorated in ancient cultures by different monuments or architectural use of stone to mark this lowest point of the sun hitting the planet at the Tropic of Capricorn, knowing that for the Northern Hemisphere, that's the shortest day, longest night. And for the Southern Hemisphere, it's the longest day and the shortest night. So Capricorn holds a very special place wherever humans have lived because it is the top or the bottom of this cycle where the sun is now returning back to the equinox, to the middle and away from the extremes. So sending you lots of best wishes for your solstice and this month of Capricorn, and see you again when we talk about Aquarius. Okay, bye everyone. See you next time.